Hey, I'm Kevin with Morphin Time Fitness, and if you need a great podcast to listen to when you're working out, it's time to download Action Activate.
What's going on? It's me, Gazbot, for Action Activate. If I'm Gazbot and this is Action Activate, then with me, as always,
it is I. It is the big dog. I just want to say I didn't necessarily plan it, but before we started the show, I had this shirt on. But after seeing what Gaz just put on there, I should reveal one of my Christmas presents that I got. Shout out Morphin Time Fitness. Boom, boom, boom.
Whoa!
In frame. Yeah. Mrs. Big Dog, Mrs. Dog, or whatever name I've given her over the years, got it for me for Christmas per my request. So shout out to the team. If you're not in the Facebook group, join that. But enough love to our friends of the show. We're here to ramble in other ways.
Yes. Now to be clear, because there were some people, specifically Matt Moniker, who was like, "Is it going to be another year until you get back to Mystic Force?" No. But technically, because it is the new year, we had watched the episode and we're prepared to do it. We have 5 episodes left of Mystic Force, and we will get back to that. But we started rambling because I was saying to the big dog, we've tried different formats of doing things other than Power Rangers, comic book reviews. We tried an anime. We do convention videos, random things. And I was saying, at some point, we're going to run out of Power Ranger things to talk about. We're going to get bored of talking about Power Rangers. People are going to get bored of us talking about Power Rangers. But I'd like to keep this going because we like getting together talking and having the channel. Yep. And so I was thinking of other formats. And I think, how did I start the conversation?
You started. So we are different ages, even though we act and seem like the same age, mostly because I look a little bit older. He's like, wait, you're a millennial, right? And I was like, yes, I am 100% a millennial. Why do you ask? And then
I said, well, I was driving around and I was thinking of this idea of like, if we were going to do another show, and to be clear, this doesn't mean we would never do Power Rangers or anything like that. This would be a secondary show, a supplemental show.
Mixing it up.
Yeah. What would it be? And I like the idea of something that wasn't pinned down to one genre, one show, one fandom.
One season.
Yeah. And I was thinking like, well, we had loosely talked about like, hey, what if we watched an old episode of a cartoon or a show or something and like kind of just one episode of the first episode of something. And I was like, well, even though we have a lot of common interests to get along, like I am older, so I grew up with different cartoons and kid shows than you did. And I was like, well, what if it was like, Gen X versus Millennial as like a fun branding thumbnail that just pictures like, we're like, whoa, like put a big X and a big M or something. I don't know.
Wait here, face again so we could just use this as
we should be versus each other.
You face the other way? There we go.
But the idea being that would be like something that maybe like grab people that don't normally watch us and everything. And then but then we started talking about the nuts and bolts of it. And like my original idea is that it would be versatile and it could change. But the rough idea would be like, I'm going to think of a show I watched as a kid that maybe you didn't, and vice versa. And so each episode, we would each watch the first episode of that show or something, or the best episode of that show or whatever. And then we wouldn't talk about it. And then we'd come on air and be like, okay, I just watched this show you recommended that I'd never seen, and vice versa. And then we'd give our impressions. I'd sort of say like, this is what I thought of it as a kid. This is what I thought of it now. And then you'd be like, well, this is my, and then we compare and contrast. And then the next week, we do totally different shows. But again, it would always be like something that neither of us have seen, something that we've both seen, something that neither of us have seen since we were kids, something that we both hated as kids, like just some kind of theme. And we would each pick a show that would make sense. And yeah, that's what we were discussing off air. And I said, well, let's discuss it on air. And because that way people can give feedback what they think below.
With that in mind, we also kind of spiraled the conversation. It was mostly me of, does this show kind of count as toku or not? Is a hot dog a sandwich? Things like that. So Shout out to Mythical Kitchen, because that's a podcast they have.
Because you were talking about some of the shows you watched as a kid, other than Power Rangers, Beetleborgs, VR Troopers, things like that. And I'm like, well, I have seen some of those, but that doesn't mean we can't do them because we'll have different perspectives and stuff. And then I was talking about American Toku, and I said, well, a show I've seen that you probably haven't is a show called Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future, which I definitely consider American Toku.
I haven't seen it.
Right, and that would be a prime candidate. And then you said
that I feel like a lot of who I am as a person is that either it was the era or my preferences or both, where most things I watched as a kid I think are Toku adjacent or Toku entirely.
Yes, you did say that, but after I mentioned Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future, you said, oh, another show that could be considered Toku is...
I think you could consider Knight Rider as Toku because it is kind of, sort of, not really Kamen Rider.
Okay. Did you ever watch Knight Rider?
Bits and pieces.
Okay. I haven't watched it. I mean, this could be a show we do because I haven't watched it since I was a kid. But as a kid, I watched it all the time. And my memory of it, this is my argument why it's... You could make an argument that it's Toku because it has an intelligent car. It barely counts in my opinion, but it's definitely not Kamen Rider. Because Kamen Rider, I'm going to be really basic here. Kamen Rider is a half-hour show about a superhero who fights monsters, and it's for kids. Knight Rider is an hour-long show that would be put on in the evening for adults, maybe teenagers or whatever, but it wasn't a kid's show, and he would fight regular gangsters and criminals and things like that, usually by running around being a normal guy, and then the car would bust in to save him when he got in trouble.
My question to you, does Toku necessarily have to have supernatural or sci-fi elements in order to be considered Toku?
I think the definition, and if I could look it up, it would, people can grab it. The definition is really just special effects. I think tokusatsu refers to movies, you're going to look it up, good, movies or TV shows that rely on special effects as part of like what makes them work. Like they wouldn't work if they didn't have this robot suit or this special magic or whatever.
Tokusatsu,
yes,
is a Japanese term,
yes,
for live action films or television programs that make heavy use of practical special effects.
Okay. Now, you could make the argument that the supercar, the Night 2000 kit, whatever, in Knight Rider uses that. And you're not wrong, but to pick another show from that era, Magnum PI, he had a car that wasn't sentient. And he drove around doing all kinds of crazy practical effects too that are probably indistinguishable from what they did in Knight Rider, other than like the sound effects and the little light on. So you can make that argument, but I feel like it starts to get very like, then everything's tokusatsu. You know what I mean? Like, so I would not. I could think of, as we're talking, I could think of other shows that have super vehicles that are more tokusatsu than Knight Rider.
Like.
There was a show, again, these are shows you haven't seen, but there was one called Super Force, which was a guy that had an Iron Man-like suit of armor and a super motorcycle. And it was basically Knight Rider where he'd go and fight crime and stuff, but it felt a lot more like a superhero show. It was definitely aimed at kids more, So I guess that's when if we do this side show or it becomes a main show, or if this is something we do and we do it for a year or 2, 3, maybe Knight Rider will come up. Well, wait, hold on. Knight Rider, it doesn't have to be tokusatsu. I forgot. The conceit, it doesn't have to be tokusatsu.
This is why we decided to record this, because kind of the long debate point. So I think, and again, this is semi off topic, but also on topic. You'll see where I'm going. I think that being a millennial, growing up in the 90s, I think whether intentional or not, most media, Power Rangers made even just straight up American shows somehow like Power Ranger formula and or Toku by extension. Like another example, I think, is Captain Planet.
It's a cartoon, so it isn't technically tokusatsu, but it is that formula of like call in the superhero by combining our powers and like there's definitely, Voltron, which is a cartoon, is that same format. It's just that comes into, well, that's an anime, but whatever.
Voltron is just animated Sentai, honestly,
pretty much.
Same with Gotcha Man.
It's interesting because as I say, the thing Voltron's missing is there are fights occasionally, but it doesn't have that like I'm gonna change into my super mode and do a lot of karate and stuff. Whereas Gotcha Man has that, but it doesn't really have the big robot. It just has the ship and but there's certainly elements in both.
So just kind of spitballing back on the main topic, what are some shows that you can think of off the top of your head that you liked as a kid that you're fairly sure I'm either unfamiliar with or you would recommend for this potential series? You already said Super Force. You already said the Captain Power.
Captain Power, yeah. Captain Power is the number one I would choose because it is American Toku. Now you may or may not like it. It's a bit dated, and this is part of it. Like, I have nostalgia glasses. Like, I'll always love it because I loved it when I was a kid. But I think at the very least you'd be like, oh, these are cool suits. I get what they're going for. This is interesting. This isn't, I think you would appreciate it as a piece of tokusatsu, if nothing else.
Yeah, I feel like, though, to that, because obviously a lot of these are going to be dated. Some are going to feel more dated than others. But I remember years back, you and I were watching some of the episodes of the original Flash series. And even though some of the effects were dated, it's still really solid.
That's true. That's true. Well, and I think we both have the ability to see past like bad effects or a little bit cheesy or a reference to something that's no longer relevant. Like we've both watched old Ultraman and Sentai and things like that and enjoyed it, and Godzilla, whatever. But I think where it's going to trip us up with there are specific things. And I can't think of a good example, but there are certain like 80s, 90s, 2000s. There are certain tropes of things like, oh, everybody, I'm making something like, oh, in the 90s, everybody wore green extreme sneakers and that was cool. And maybe you're like, yeah, that was cool. And I'm like, that's dumb. You know what I mean? Something that's just like super subjective, You're
like, parachute pants were never uncool. And I'll go,
Oh, you think parachute pants are an 80s thing?
No, I know it's a 90s thing because MC Hammer, but I'm just, again, thinking
of... Right, yeah. But something like that where it's very subjective.
Okay. Again, this tangent's so random. Like, did you ever think back in the day the half tank tops like in Rocky 3 were cool?
For like a day.
Okay.
I don't think I ever thought... I mean, I didn't think they're as silly as like we realize they are now. But I do remember, and here's the thing, I remember being a kid, not even like a teenager. Like, I don't know how old I was like 11 or something, and I think my aunt, who had good fashion sense for the 80s, was getting rid of some stuff. And there was some stuff that was sort of like I could wear as a guy and it didn't look like girl clothes. And one of the things she had was like a cut tank top, which dudes wore back then. And I'm like, oh yeah, these are cool, but I wasn't in good shape. I wasn't, like I had a little bit of a belly hanging out, it was not, if it was cool in anyone, I wasn't the guy, and I had my glasses and I'm like, and I still had all my other normal clothes, but I'm like, and I don't know if I ever wore it out of the house. I don't think I ever wore it out of the house. I think I kind of brought it home, wore it around the house, and like everyone decided that was a mistake, and myself included. So that's as close as I came.
I remember when I want to say I was in high school. My dad was doing a purge of his closet, and you could tell how long it had been since he had done that because of what I got from him. So my dad trained in martial arts my whole life, and I trained in martial arts back when I was younger.
I forgot we were recording. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly right. And he got rid of, and this is similar, like Rocky kind of influence. It was one of those like, it wasn't a sweatshirt, but it was like not a heavy t-shirt.
Was it mesh?
Weird? It wasn't mesh. No, but it was actual like cotton material. And the sleeves were like the ones that were like super angular, like almost like Wolverines, like pauldrons.
Yeah, like this.
Yeah.
Like weightlifters would wear them.
Yes. It was that. It was an Everlast one. It was white. And then he got rid of a pair of Jams.
I did have Jams.
See, and that's the thing. Part of it may be nostalgia. Part of it is, have you ever worn Jams? They're incredibly comfortable.
And also with fashion, especially, I'm not the best person to ask because I've never been very fashion forward, and I grew up on the poor side, and I spent a lot of time, even though my parents were around, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. So very often when it was time to go shopping for clothes, my grandmother would take me, and we would go to whatever the discount, Kmart or Kohl's or whatever, Marshalls, and so I would be getting the discount clothes that were popular 3 years ago through the eye of my grandmother. So like it was. Whatever the fashion trend was, I was not on it,
So that's why both of us were like, what's the year? 2009? I'm pretty sure that Jams and these Everlast cutoffs are cool. But what was I? We were talking about shows. Okay. So you did 3 shows. Part of the reason we started recording, Captain Power,
Super Force. What was the other one I said? We were talking about Knight Rider, but I wasn't suggesting it.
I thought there was another one. Oh, no, maybe I got confused because of Voltron and Gotcha Man. Well, what is your third then?
As something I'm not committing to, but just let me look around my room. Did you ever watch the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon?
I watched some of it. I may have seen some of it with you.
Maybe. Okay, well, that's what comes to mind. But if you in the beginning,
I've never seen Silverhawks though.
I don't know if that's good for a first episode. I'm not even sure if I want to watch something like that. I don't know how that holds up. Maybe G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. Did you ever watch that?
I watched the movie with you.
Okay.
And I watched a lot of the PSAs.
Not with the original audio.
Both. I've seen both.
I think I would pick an 80s cartoon that I remember being good that I think will hold up, is what I would pick. Maybe Dungeons and Dragons, maybe G.I. Joe, something like that. And full disclosure, some of these shows I have watched, maybe not in a while, but since I was a kid, maybe when I was in my 20s, maybe 10 years ago. So like, I remember watching G.I. Joe as an adult and be like, oh, this holds up better than I thought. So I would probably pick one of those shows, but you were going to say some shows.
So a lot of mine are Toku or Toku adjacent. First one that came to mind was Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad.
Right.
I have big nostalgia glasses for that show, and I haven't watched it, so I think it'd be fun for both of us, especially you being an Ultraman guy.
Yeah, and I definitely saw like an episode or parts, like I didn't watch it, but I definitely I know what the characters look like. I know Tim Curry did a voice of one of them. I know it was the brother of the guy from Blossom was in it.
Yeah, Matthew Lawrence.
I certainly know the trappings of it. I've seen the toys. I've seen your toys. I know it's based on Gridman. I've never watched Gridman, but also this. I remember there was a time, because I didn't get into Ultraman later, and there was definitely a time where it was like Ultraman, Gridman, Superhuman Cyber Squad. Like, is this all one guy? What is it? Like, it definitely, like, I wasn't sure what it was for a while, but yeah, that would be a good one because I don't know too much about it. I probably never watched a single episode beginning to end.
Yeah, that one was pretty good from what I recall, which means probably not great. VR Troopers and Beetleborgs, we've both seen here and there, and I'm down for it, but I don't want to commit those to this list that doesn't mean anything to anybody
right now. We're committing to. We're open to people talking in the comments saying, yes, I like that. No, I don't like that. Suggesting things, telling us you love this idea, you hate this idea. So say whatever you want. We're not committed to anything.
Another one that comes to mind for anime. Did you ever watch SWAT Cats?
I know less about SWAT Cats than I do about Superhuman Samurai. Again, I could kind of picture them in my head. I maybe saw half of one episode, but I definitely did not watch it for real.
That one, I feel like I mentioned it on one of our previous like toy episodes. If Super 7 did SWAT Cats, that might be one where I'm like, all right. But that one was solid. I remember watching that a lot. It was on Cartoon Network, and then I think when Boomerang came out, I caught a lot of it there.
SWAT Cats is Silverhawks. Here's why. And having not watched it, Silverhawks was like, there was He-Man and there was this other stuff, and then Thundercats came along, which was kind of building off He-Man and other stuff, but it was his own thing. It was really popular. And then after that, there was like Silverhawks and Tiger Sharks, which were never as popular, and they were kind of the same idea, just different. And so there was like Ninja Turtles, and then there was like Street Sharks, and
Street Sharks would be my other one.
Cowboys of Moon Mesa, and then there was like SWAT Cats, and I feel like SWAT Cats was like Silverhawks, where it's like the second or third generation of a similar idea, so that it wasn't as popular. The people that saw it like it, but it's like, yeah, it was not the main thing.
It's the watered down thing.
That's I haven't seen it, but that's how I always imagine.
SWAT Cats was pretty solid. Street Sharks, man, that probably, like, if I had like a couple things on a shelf of like, what'd you like when you were a kid? It'd be the main Street Shark. It'd be the Red Ranger, the Dragon Shield armor. It'd be Ryan from VR Troopers. And it'd be Dex from Max Rider, technically, because he's just there. And then the Blue Beetleborg with his big old battle armor, man. Those were my jam back in the day. And Powerpuff Girls. I was a big fan of Powerpuff Girls. The original series.
No, I know what you mean. Hold on. I just lost my train. I thought we were talking about Super 7, SWAT Cats. Oh, Street Sharks. I think Street Sharks, which I probably saw just as little of as SWAT Cats, but I remember the toys. Yeah. And I didn't have them, but my cousins had them, and I saw them in the store, and I never got them, but they always looked cool. They always looked like, oh, those would kind of go with Ninja Turtles. Maybe I misspoke. Maybe SWAT Cats is Tiger Sharks, and Street Sharks is Silverhawks, because Silverhawks came after the Thundercats. Street Sharks came after Ninja Turtles. Both of them, I think, had really great toy lines that everybody remembers, kind of more than the show. Yeah. And that's why, like, I have like a bunch of Silverhawks figures. And I literally was thinking today, because I watched the video that Super 7 is releasing Vac Metal reaction figures of Silverhawks. I don't know if I want those. If they were cheaper, maybe, but at $25 pop line. But somebody was doing a review, Tiberium Hanger. And in the review, he was showing part of the intro of the cartoon, and I was like, all those intros are great. I'm like, I even like this show. Like, I'm spending so much money on the toys. And I'm like, I loved the toys though.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm buying them. And I feel like Street Sharks might be a similar thing where regardless how good the show may have been, the toys were what made it good.
One thing from the 90s that the toys and the show were good, Gargoyles.
Oh, yeah. I think we're going to find common ground there. So that might not be a good one for us.
I rambled a bunch. I'm going to look around for inspiration as well. If there's any that you can think of
other things that we could,
we're just rambling at this point of stuff we like.
Did you ever
seeing if the other person liked it?
Did you ever watch the original He-Man?
Not really. I watched a little bit of 2000X.
2000X is a superior show. I have the nostalgia for the original, but 2000X is definitely a better show. I watched probably every episode of the original, but not in a very long time. And I watched a good handful of 2000X, but I never owned it. I just watched it whenever it was on. Masters of the Universe He-Man, the original, is an example of one that I wouldn't be like, this is great, you're going to love it. It's like, I don't even like it. But again, I have the toys. There's aesthetics to it that it's very iconic, and they have some cool stuff I like about it. But watching those episodes, even as a kid, I remember at some, whatever age I got to, I never got bored of watching Transformers. Eventually, they went off the air and something else came out. But I was never I don't like Transformers. But I definitely remember there was an age where I'm like, He-Man's kind of dumb. I liked it for a while, and then because it was. So it'd be interesting. That would be one to be interesting. Be like, let's see what you think of He-Man. Would you ever have liked this? Or
one that I remember, actually, two shows that I watched a lot that are definitely before my time. Watched a lot of Thundercats back in the day, because that was on Boomerang, and another curveball, Johnny Quest.
The 70s, 60s, 70s Johnny Quest.
Both.
Wow. So I've maybe watched one or two episodes of Johnny Quest. So you might know more than me. I
don't remember the names, but I remember a lot of because I remember when Venture Bros came out. I didn't watch Venture Bros, but I looked. I'm like, is this just a Johnny Quest knockoff? Not knowing that that's exactly what it is.
Right. Well, that's how it starts, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm trying to think what else.
Well, but you brought up an interesting thing, maybe because of Boomerang, but growing up in I say 80s, 90s, whatever. I watched a fair amount of older cartoons. I don't even know when they're from. I was 60s and 70s, but I could be wrong. Hanna-Barbera cartoons they weren't necessarily my favorites, but they were just cartoons that were on.
Yeah, and they weren't bad enough for you to change the channel.
It was better than the news or sports or whatever was on the other channel, but it was things. And again, I don't even know the names of a lot of either. I'm going to say Grape Ape, but that's not even one I remember.
Oh, I know what you. Yeah,
but Jabberjaw, basically everything that wasn't Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones. But was that same animation, Hanna-Barbera or whatever, and there's a million of them, and some of them had 2 episodes, and some of them were okay, and some of them were terrible.
Yeah.
Here's one I would love to do, because I haven't watched it since I was a kid, and I feel like it would be really good. I could be wrong, but I feel like I'm gonna watch it and be like, wow, this is way better than I thought. Thundar the Barbarian.
Oh, I haven't watched it.
It predates He-Man and was never as big. But I watched it as a kid, and it was a thing where I saw it after He-Man, because it was older, and I'm like, this is okay, but it's no He-Man. But I bet you, as an adult, I'll probably be like, this is way better than He-Man. And yeah, I don't even want to say anymore because I know a couple facts about it. But that might be a good one for both of us to watch.
One that I thought of that I don't think would work for this specifically because I didn't appreciate it as much, but I did like it when I was younger, and I feel like now I would like it a lot more. Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
I definitely enjoyed that. And I was definitely, I don't know what age I was. I wasn't a kid. I was a teenager or young 20, whatever. When I saw that, I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
and not just that, you know what I liked even more than that was there was a spin-off show called Cartoon Planet. And it was, he didn't do the interviews. The interviews were good, but it was kind of after you watch it, how many times can you watch it?
Yeah.
This other one I would watch over and over again. And it was just him and that's where Brack came from, before the Brack show. Because Brack wasn't in Space Ghost Coast to Coast. So it was Brack, and it was just them hanging out and just doing weird non sequiturs and silly songs and stuff. And when I saw that, and now it's, again, probably dated and we've seen a million things, but at the time, I'm like, this is the weirdest, funniest thing I've ever seen.
Were you a big Super Friends guy?
I watched it. It was better than Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Because it might have even been Hanna-Barbera. It was better.
I believe it was.
Yeah, it was better than the other Hanna-Barbera cartoons because I did like superheroes. I read comics, so these are superheroes, but they're kind of lame. But they're still superheroes because there wasn't a lot of options at that time. So I watched it because it was superheroes, but it was definitely not my favorite.
Yeah, it was one I I think I went into it like that, and then the more I watch it, the more I'm like, these are pretty solid. And then like right when I was phasing out of like, I don't know if this is any good, Justice League came out, and I was like, oh, never mind, we're good now.
Justice League was amazing. Yeah, that's and
See,
you
like
were watching it even later than I was watching it, because that was again, I want to say 60s, 70s, something like that. I don't know.
No. Are you talking Super Friends?
Super Friends.
Yeah,
so
Super Friends. I think is 70s.
And you were watching it probably in the 90s, so it's even further.
Definitely in the 90s, not pre-90s. I was watching it.
True. Yes. I remember one of the few superhero shows that was out, I think was contemporary when I was a kid, was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
That was that one was all right.
And that's probably dated now, but I would watch that and love it. And then I'd watch Super Friends and be like, oh, it's no Spider-Man, but you know.
Yeah. This is a random deep cut. Yeah. And I would throw this out there to see how both of us react. Did you ever watch Ghost Rider?
There was a cartoon of Ghost Rider?
No. Not Ghost Rider.
Oh, Ghost
Writer.
I'm going to say effectively no.
That I'm putting up here.
That was like a PBS or like educational channel.
Something like that. So it was the theme song, I'm going to butcher, but it was like, Ghost Rider, he's a ghost, and he writes to us, and it's this random ghost that helps these kids solve mysteries.
Yeah, okay. I think I saw like a commercial for it. Because like when you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, there was a show called Ghost Rider. And it makes, I don't know if it was on Nickelodeon or PBS, but I put it in the same camp as like Goosebumps or something like that. Like that sort of like not kids show, but not adult show.
Yeah, Goosebumps would be a fun one too. I remember I watched some of Goosebumps, but it used to freak me out, and so did Are You Afraid of the Dark?
I've definitely watched like a couple episodes of Goosebumps. I don't know if I ever watched Are You Afraid of the Dark, but even Goosebumps. But that would be a good thing where you pick one of those. And then I remember a show, because here's the thing, I watched Nickelodeon when it was new.
Yeah.
And they had weird stuff on Nickelodeon when it was
100%.
They had a lot of but they had stuff from like other countries and stuff. Like, not that makes it weird, but like just like most people once it went off Nickelodeon, it wasn't like, oh, we all remember Three's Company or something. Like just nobody remembers it unless they saw it. But I remember there was a show that terrified me on Nickelodeon called The Third Eye. And it was essentially a kid version of like the Twilight Zone or whatever. And I have not watched it since I was a kid, but I remember I only watched it once or twice and I couldn't handle it. So if I could find an episode of that and you could find the Goosebumps show, that's like a good head-to-head kind of thing.
What was your favorite kids reality competition show that you had watched? Most of them were Nickelodeon, but
I mean, I like Double Dare like everybody did.
There's one correct answer, but
I know what you're gonna say.
What am I gonna say?
The Legend of the Hidden Temple?
No, that's what most people say.
Oh, okay. What are you gonna say?
Guts.
Oh, okay. And that was my next guess, but I don't know. I can't remember what Guts was. It was sort of like Double Dare, right? Guts.
Mike O'Malley over here at the Aggro Crag. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was kids. There was Guts and then there was Global Guts, where eventually it was kids from other countries compete. And they do all these mini games, and then eventually whoever
there was definitely like balloons full of paint and stuff, right?
Yeah, they did random stuff. You had to kayak on this like little tarp with water on it. You had to go through this obstacle course, and then eventually you went up the Aggro Crag.
And he's running around like, oh, you got like super high energy, like yeah. That I can't say that was my favorite. I definitely like Double Dare more than those, but again, I saw Double Dare, like they came later, so I was older and or like loyal to Double Dare, but Double Dare isn't my favorite either. My favorite was which is probably terrible now. Oh my gosh, I can't remember what it was called. I have to look it up. It was an arcade show.
I think I know which one you're talking about, where it was like had this really bad stuff in the background and you buzz in and do answers, and it was like and it looked like freaking the Star Wars Kenner game or Atari game in the background.
Like, the kids and even now I don't know how they did it. Like obviously the kid was in front of a green screen, so it looked like they're in the video game, but then they would touch stuff and interact with it. And so like is somebody just like pressing the buttons for them? They'd answer questions about video games. Then they would compete on arcade machines. And then the winner went into a video game. And so as a kid, I'm like, that's the best. There's nothing better.
You must like Wizards as a kid then.
I don't know if I ever saw Wizards.
Or was it Wizard? The one with the Power
Wizard
Glove.
movie with Fred Savage?
Yeah.
I saw it.
I think Wizards is different, and I'm getting it confused. It was like an animated, like
Yeah.
PG-13R. Yeah.
And there's like a guy, like a wizard-looking guy sitting on some kind of frog monster thing.
I think so. Yeah,
I think it's rough, actually. I may have seen that, but that's neither here nor there. No, the Fred Savage movie Wizard I did see, and I found it disappointing even as a kid.
I did not watch it.
It's probably better now as an adult to like laugh at how bad it is.
A movie, if we were going to do this for movies, I'm curious if The Page Master holds up.
That's a movie I haven't properly watched.
Oh, I loved that as a kid.
Some pieces of it. Here's an age divide. Again, I don't know how. I don't remember when it came out.
95.
Okay, I remember working at a video store when it was out, and so
may have been 94. And so half of the reason I liked it is I thought it was a good movie. 50 to 60% of the reason I watched it, it had a behind-the-scenes sneak peek at the upcoming Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie at the beginning of the VHS, and I watched that arguably more than I watched the movie. I'll be honest.
That makes sense.
We never reviewed that movie, huh?
Did we not? No, because I haven't watched that in years,
dude. That honestly, that'd be a good segue. Yeah. I would review that with you because I'm always jonesing.
I would review that, but weirdly, I'd be more excited to watch Turbo.
Really?
Here's why. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie I haven't seen in years, but I have seen several times, and I remember it pretty okay. And I remember going to the theater to see it and like being like into it. Going into whatever. And then I remember when Turbo came out, whatever interest I had in Power Rangers had faded, and I wasn't really paying attention. And I remember Turbo being in the theater. And like, I'm not sure if I've seen Turbo all the way through. Like, I feel like I have, but maybe I haven't. And like, so I don't remember it real well. And like, so for that reason, I'm more interested in watching Turbo because I don't remember it.
See, for me, I am very biased in this instance because I watched both a lot.
Right.
Like a lot. But okay, so we have rambled for a half hour. We both have stuff to do, but I want us to continue this conversation. So what we're going to do is I'm going to list my top 3 of here's ones I'd like to put at the forefront because of my personal bias. You do the same, and everybody down below who cares, you say what you like out of our picks, your own picks, whatever. Just say something down below.
In the video here, or we're going to put them in a comment?
You and I are going to do it right now.
Okay. Well, then I just want to have, my concept, and maybe this doesn't matter, was that like, if I say, here's a cartoon I loved as a kid, then you'd say, here's a cartoon I loved as a kid. Or if you say, here's a live action Toku that I didn't like, but I think like, I want it to have a similar, whatever.
That's why you're starting.
Okay. All right. Well, so then I will say a Toku I liked as a kid, and I'm going to say Captain Power of the Soldiers of the Future.
I'm going to go Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad.
I feel like that's what we're going to end up doing, but okay. Then I'll say, let me think of, I want to do a cartoon that you haven't seen. So I was going to say Dungeons and Dragons, but you've seen it. I was going to say G.I. Joe. You maybe have seen it. You saw the movie at least.
I haven't seen Silverhawks.
I was almost going to do Gargoyles, but we've seen Gargoyles. Well, you do first on the next one. You do first.
Okay. So for this one, and again, with the rules in mind, tell me if I should edit it. I'm thinking of Street Sharks because it's been so long since I've watched it.
Okay. If you do Street Sharks, then I would do Silverhawks because I just explained how they match. So
yeah. Okay. We'll do that. And then you lead for the next one because I have a couple different options.
All right. So we have a live action tokusatsu. We have a cartoon. Game show. Trying to think of a show that's like a kid show that isn't live action, that isn't tokusatsu, but is live action.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of. You know, if you have something in mind, go ahead. Because I'm
with those parameters, I would say Ghost Rider.
Okay. What would I say?
Or if you want to go scary one, we can go scary. You could do Third Eye, and I could do a different one.
And what would you pick if I did Third Eye?
Goosebumps is more iconic, but Are You Afraid of the Dark was more scary.
Well, the main thing I remember about this show is that it scared me. So
then I would do Are You Afraid of the Dark?
So then if anybody wants to vote, and you could still talk about things that you think would be good in general for this format, or things that we said that you're like, I never want to see that. But if we were to do this show in a couple weeks or whatever, when we finish up Mystic Force, or maybe slip it in between, the choices for the first episode would be Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future versus Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad.
Yep.
Are You Afraid of the Dark versus the Third Eye? And Silverhawks
Sharks.
versus Street Sharks.
Yep.
Yeah, and I say versus, but it's not like, you know.
And then the movie would be Mighty Morphin versus Turbo, but we already know who would win, so you don't even have to put that debate up.
But it's not which is better; it's which would people want us to see talk about.
Both are the same answer.
I think if we do TV shows, we would do two episodes, like 2 shows per one episode. If we do a movie, it'd be one movie. But maybe
I know 100%.
But if we did like Mighty Morphin or something that you chose, then maybe I would choose a different kids movie, or figure that out.
Like Small Soldiers or
that I would not.
Oh, that's still 90. What? You don't like Small Soldiers?
I didn't say that. I said I wouldn't pick it because I consider that more 90s.
You'd pick some Toy Soldiers then.
Well, this is something we talked about too. Toy Soldiers.
Yeah, with Sean Astin.
Like a heavy drama.
Hey, we're just similar but different.
Yeah, I mean, we could branch out and do sitcoms and other things, but something we talked about, I think we didn't say this online, is it's also a thing where I am Gen X and he's a millennial, but I'm on the younger side. Well, forgetting about our actual ages, I am into a lot of things that people my age, like younger things, and you're into a lot of older things. So there is some stuff where it's like, yeah, like I did see Small Soldiers. I have watched Gargoyles because then a lot of people my age maybe didn't. And you watched, what was the movie you were saying? Near Dark, like the 80s vampire.
Yeah, Near Dark and what else?
Like
Highlander. My sister, if she would
beat me on that because I'm not a Highlander guy.
Well, so I like the first Highlander, and it's the only one I've seen, and it is objectively a good movie. But part of the bias is my dad loves Highlander, and if my sister was born as a boy, she was going to be named Connor after the lead character in Highlander.
I'm not saying good, bad, whatever, but like it was a little bit before my time, but I was closer to the age of someone who should be into it than you. But it just, I've seen I saw the second one, and then I saw the first one. I think I saw a couple episodes of the show. Just never grabbed me.
Do you want to know why none of the sequels worked?
Because the whole concept is there can only be one.
Yeah, dang it! I didn't think you were going to get to it that quick.
Well, I think because
I watched steal a point for you.
Yeah. So yeah, that next week we'll be back. We'll be doing Mystic Force. I think we have 5 episodes left of Mystic Force, so we're gonna finish that. And
it's very clear how we feel about it because so many times we're like we're gonna talk about it, then we just decided to ramble for 40 minutes about nothing.
Well, because part of it is that we don't always have a chance to talk and catch up. So the show a lot of times is our chance to catch up, and sometimes we start talking before the show, and we're just like, well, let's just make this the show because we
may as well include everybody in all the nonsensical baloney that we talk about. But this was fun. I don't want you to think it wasn't because I had a good time.
Good, me too. All right, everybody, let us know what you think below, and we'll be back next week with some Mystic Force. Until then, I've been Gazbot.
I am not the Mystic Dog this week. That was a trick. Yeah. I am the Big Dog, and to the power. See y'all later.
And
those are the.
No attention to the behind the screen.
These are the end credits.
Yes.
Yeah, dang it. Now I just want to watch a bunch of different stuff. And you and I fall into the same category of our lists are long and our time is short.
Right. Well, which is why we would do one episode, not like, hey, let's watch a season of this. Like,
wait, you're not going to binge the entire 50 episode season of Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad?
No, because I'll be doing Silverhawks and
yeah, that's why.
All right, see you, everybody.